So in this part of the demonstration, we're going to teach you how to roll forward your registration event. There are a couple different ways that you can create registration events for next season. If you're 100% confident of your folder structure that you have, everything kind of worked pretty well this past year, then what you'll do is copy/roll forward your structure. If it didn't necessarily function that well, if you found there were a lot of issues in doing stuff, it may be beneficial for you to create a new one, and we're happy to provide those directions to you through our Pathway to Play site, or if you email us, we can set some time aside and assist you in creating that. But for the purpose of today, we're going to roll forward the events. You'll notice on the left-hand side, we have what we call our tree. And this works as almost like a filing cabinet. So for example, we have all these folders and there's indented levels. So our cabinet is our event, and then we have inside of the event maybe a folder for coaches, and inside of there we have our genders, and inside of there we have our categories. So it's important to know that this works in a hierarchy similar to maybe how the old Windows computer system used to work, where everything is inside of each other. So we have our team that's inside of the category, which is inside of the gender, which is inside of our coach pool. So it's important to kind of understand those things before you begin. That and the second part of it is where you click matters. So for example, if we're clicked on our top level, you're going to see we have a different screen than if we're clicking on our event. Anytime you take an action inside of the system, you want to make sure that you've selected the proper level on the left, because oftentimes it's going to have an effect on anything that's immediately below it. Additionally, you have the option when creating registration events to change some of the questions on the form that you use. To do that, for example, maybe you want to ask questions about a uniform size, or maybe the practice availability for players on your registration form. You can do that by going to Registration, Administration, Registrant, Form Builder. And then down here you can select the actual form. Now we've copied in the registration forms for you, 2019, 2020, 1920 again for rec and travel, and then the master player form. With that, you can click on this actual form, and that's going to take you to the questions that are being asked of the players or the participants. And you can toggle up here to change who you're asking the question for and select questions to drag and drop. When you've done that, make sure to click Save, but since we're not making changes, we'll go ahead and click Close. With that, we are going to go ahead and actually copy the structure. So the first thing that we want to do is get folders and categories in place so we can actually open a registration event. To do that, we want to make sure we click on the registration event from last year. If you did it yearly, so you only have one registration event for the entire year, use that one. If you did a fall and spring, it might be beneficial to just copy or roll forward your fall event, since you're going to have another fall season coming up first. And then you can roll forward your spring or copy your fall as registration goes on in the future if you choose to do it that way. So to do that, what we're going to do is click on that and start to drag above our shield level. So right now it says Test Club. That will probably say the name of the organization that you are logged into. And you'll notice that we have a line above that with a green check mark next to our mouse. If we move it anywhere else, we get a red X. So we want to make sure that we have that green check mark. And then in this case, we want to roll forward our category. Rolling forward and copying are two different things. Copy will just literally copy the exact structure that you have, won't change any age settings, whereas rolling forward will change age settings forward 1 year. So your 2011s that are previously the 8s will now become the 2000, will now become your 09s. When we do this, we want to make sure that we change the actual name of the event. It will just take the text as is, and then there's this copy text at the back that you want to make sure you delete. So you can select an action, a roll forward, or roll forward with teams. If you have the same teams coming from year to year, or even a majority of the same, you want to roll forward with teams. And you'll notice that we now have a 2019-2020 folder structure, which looks nearly identical to the one above it from this current season. The only difference is the icons. So you'll notice that we just have folder icons. And this will change as we start to open up the registration events. So we'll get started on that. After you've made any changes to your form and added any additional questions that you want to have, you can actually start to open the events. I recommend beginning with coaches just because it's a little bit simpler rather than going with the players, which can be a little longer, but a lot of it is the same. So once you do the coaches and become familiar with it, it's easy to become familiar with the players as well, which can be a little bit more difficult. What you want to do is just make sure before you begin everything is in its proper spot. So you want to make sure that there's an indent between each of the levels. You might have it backwards where you have the age group first and then maybe the genders that go underneath it. That's completely okay. Whatever suits your club, you're more than welcome to use. It will just be a little different as we go through the process. Again, just to explain the coach pool, we want the coaches to register at a higher level than everybody else, so they only have to register once. We want the coach pool to basically be a pool where we can pick coaches from and assign them to any team that might reside underneath it. Whereas if we don't have a coach pool, it would require each coach to register to every single team. So that would mean if you have a coach coaching 5 teams, they would register directly to 5 teams. Whereas this allows them to just register once and the club can assign them as many times as they need. So let's get started. We want to, again, make sure that we've selected 2019-2020. And we're going to do the coach first. So we go up to the right-hand corner. We click Registration, Administration, Coach, Open and Create. When we do that, we want to label the name for the event settings. Oops, this is supposed to be Coach. For our registration form, we want to select the 2019-2020 Master Travel Coach form, have the correct season, enter the contact name, and make sure your data sharing is selected to yes. If you've selected this to no, none of it will be shared with the association, and that really defeats the purpose of the system. You also have the ability to receive email notifications for new registrations by clicking notification settings if you'd like. You can do that. Now, it might seem a little confusing, but you want this to actually be set to no backgrounds and instant background check to no. It might be grayed out for you already, but this is completely separate from what we do, so there's no need to touch it. If you're collecting any fees for your coaches, make sure to select the merchant account that the fees will be transferred to. And then if you are collecting fees, again, make sure to check yes and any applicable answers down here in the financials section. Otherwise, go ahead and click Next. The event types are pretty irrelevant. They have no bearing on anything. Even if you have something in here, I would just recommend clicking Next. And then this is going to be the tough part for us later on, but since we do have a coach pool, we just want to click Coach Pool. That's it. We don't want to select any of the teams. We don't want to highlight anything else. We just want to click Coach Pool. And then we'll go ahead and click Next. Now that we've done that, we'll do some age settings. There's the option to skip it, but don't do that because it will cause issues later when you try and create the registration event. So we're just going to select some random dates in there. I would recommend putting in the entire seasonal year. That way, in case you have some coaches that join you later, you won't have to go in and make any changes. We recommend a high number of max participants, again, so you don't run into any snags along the way. Auto-confirm can be off or on. This is preference. If it's on, it's less work for the administrator, and all coaches will be sent to New Jersey Youth Soccer as soon as they register. If it's set to off, then you will have to take the step of confirming your coaches before they come to us. It is extra work, but it can be good if you would like to verify your coaches and their information before having the background check ran and the $15 charged. So for this purpose, we're going to turn into on, and then the next 4 questions don't necessarily make a difference. It's all, again, all preference. So go ahead and click next. The category name looks good. We can leave that as is. So click next. There's no need to select any printable forms in here. You'll notice that there is the medical PDF. Coaches don't typically have that for themselves, so go ahead and click next and leave that as default. If you have any waivers, you can drag and drop them in here. You'll notice these are pretty old. These are club level waivers, so if you created them, you can drag and drop, or if you want to create one right now, you can click add new waiver. Otherwise, go ahead and click next. This page would be where you put any instructions for the coaches, such as maybe a coaches meeting or any requirements that they need to complete before finishing the registration process. This is going to be the email that they receive once they are confirmed. Similarly, you have the registration success page, which is where the coach will, when they complete their registration, see some information on the actual site itself. So again, maybe some information about a coaches meeting or compliance requirements, anything that might be useful to them. And if you make any changes, be sure to hit add/update. You'll get some success banner appear in green, and once you see that, go ahead and click next. Here's where you verify all your information for the event. So everything looks good. We've labeled it coach, we have our form, and then we have our coach pool title, our maximum registrations, and open close date. Since it looks good, I'm going to go ahead and click Create Registration Event and hit OK. And if you noticed on the left-hand side, we have a calendar icon now where that folder was, and then a hexagon for the coach pool. So this indicates that there's a registration event open. If you see when I hover over it, we have the coach banner. Take note that that is only because we've just opened a coach event. So now we want to go through and actually open a player registration event. And to do that, it's very similar. Again, make sure that you've clicked on 2019-2020 travel season. If you click on anything else down here, it's not going to work properly. So make sure you've clicked on the event. Then go up to registration, administration, registrant, open and create. And you'll notice it looks almost identical to what the coaches did. Again, label the back end of it so it says players. Select the correct registration form, 1920 master. Select the correct seasonal year. Enter in any contact information. If you want notification settings, go ahead and do that. And then in the financial section, if you're collecting any membership fees or registration fees through Stack Sports, you would select your merchant account. If this is something that you're interested in doing, you will need a merchant account that will collect basically the routing information for your bank and then transfer any monies that are owed to you from there. To set that up, you would just contact us and we would put you in touch with Stack Sports Sales. You do need a merchant agreement to do that. And then if you have fees associated, you would check yes. Otherwise, go ahead and check no. And if you do have fees, the other 2 questions are applicable for you. Tryout style event. So you might be saying, oh, that's actually a cool feature if I have tryouts going on. I would suggest creating a completely separate event for tryouts and not using this feature. It does have some developmental issues, so I would say to just leave that alone and leave it checked to no. If you are using any financials for the event and you want payment plans, you can check yes. If you'd like to learn more about that, it's a little complex, but we'd be more than happy to let you know. And then auto roster. I really recommend keeping this checked to yes. This is not going to necessarily help you in the current season, but it will help you going forward in your next season. If this is set to yes, once a player registers next season, if they were on a team in this season and they register again, it will automatically roster them to where they were in the last registration event. You'll see that there's an asterisk requiring a date. That's just a styling error. There's actually nothing that's required there, so you can leave that blank. And then the next 3 questions, again, are based on preference for your club, so click next. Event types, again, pretty irrelevant, so go ahead and click next. And then this is probably the hardest part of the entire registration event setup. So again, We have it so it's set with gender first, age group next. You might have it flipped so it's age group with the 2 genders underneath, age group, 2 genders underneath. So just take careful attention of how your structure is. With this, we want to make sure that we don't actually select the teams and we don't select whatever the second indent is. We just want to get basically that lower level just above the teams. So in this case, it's the age groups. We want to select all of them. So if you're on a PC, click the Control key and hold that down while you select all of them. If you're on a Mac, click and hold Command. So notice I'm just getting the age groups in this case. If, again, you have the genders underneath, you would go for the genders instead of the age group categories. You want to do that just because the players will register to these categories, and let's say if there's multiple teams underneath, you can assign them to either team. If you have them registered directly to the team, it can be difficult to move them around and will require a lot of back-end work. So once you've done that, go ahead and click Next. Set your registration open and close dates. Again, we recommend the entire seasonal year. A lot of times clubs will call in and say, hey, I can't see the registration event, or it looks like it's closed. So just set the date as far out in advance as you can. Make sure you select the proper member type. Member type has everything to do with how you're billed. So if you select the wrong one, you're going to be billed incorrectly, and that will cause some headaches on everybody's end. So to avoid that, select travel. If you've put in a real number for your max participants, then maybe you want to select yes for enable waitlist. This is a perfect option for recreation clubs. You'll notice that auto-confirm again works the same as coaches as it does for coaches. So we have off and on. If you want to take that step of confirming players, then you would select this as off. If you just want them to go through, go ahead and select them as on. And then the next 4 are based on preference. If you are collecting fees, this is where you would add any late fees or maybe early bird discounts. You could put in the date and the amount and then click Add at the bottom. Otherwise, you can go and click Next. This part can actually be a little frustrating. You notice that it's concatenated all the folders that are above it. So we want really just the boys and the age group, or the gender and the age group, but it's brought in coach pool as well. So you just have to go through it and delete the coach pool part. It just takes a couple seconds, but it will appear when the registrants go to select the category to register for. So if it says coach pool, it could look a little confusing and you might receive a couple questions. So I suggest just taking a couple seconds here to save you some time on the back end. Now, since we did make changes, you want to hit update in the center and then click next. For the players, we do want to select the NJYS medical PDF in custom form. So we've done that. And now we're going to click next. If you have any waivers or code of conduct, again, drag them down. Note that there are waivers that New Jersey Youth Soccer will send down to the clubs through registration. You're never going to see them here, but when you go through the actual front end process of it, you'll notice that there are a couple waivers that we have at the state level, and you'll be asked to agree to them. Otherwise, go ahead and click next if you have nothing here. If you have any coupons, feel free to drag and drop them down. Then click next. Same thing, any instructions that you might want to send to your players via email once they're confirmed. Maybe there's a player meeting, or there's some sponsorship information that you want to give out on their behalf. You can definitely put that information in here, or maybe any information you want them to see on a registration success page. If you make changes, add an update, then click next. Enabling game day rosters and rules, you kind of want to leave this section alone. This is really for the club that runs an in-house league where they might have their own game day schedules, might have their own rosters that they need to print where the teams in the club play against each other, so maybe perfect for recreation. Even though you might use Stack Sports for your regular league play and travel, don't check this. It's not for that purpose. You'll go ahead and click next. Verify that everything looks good. So we have our travel season players, master registration form, and then we have all of our settings that appear to be good. We'll click Create Registration Event and click OK. And you'll notice now in the center we have a Registrants tab and a Coach and Volunteer tab. Here's where you can actually do some of the management and assigning. So you can add players if you want to admin add a player here. You can confirm your players, find them, manage billing, or print forms. Never use the copy player feature. That will cause a lot of issues in terms of finance and registration because it will use the original registration date from the previous seasonal year rather than having them enter their information again. So it's really important that you don't do that. Same thing goes for coaches. Never admin add a coach. This will not provide authorization for a background check, so never use this button in the coach tab. Now that we've created our events, the next step would be to use the website builder. So you'll notice that we have no open registration events here. Let me shrink this down so you can actually see what you're looking at. You'll notice that we have no registration events open here. You might actually have some from last season. You can just click the pencil, and then you can drag and drop the ones that are already in here out, but we want to drag and drop the ones that we have and we just created in and click Update. Once we've done that, we can go and click Publish, hit OK, and you'll see our page turns to blue. Now a quick tip, what you can do is actually right-click on the Register Now button and copy the link address. That will provide you the registration link that the exact event is under. So you can just provide that right to your coach or right to your player rather than have them go to your SAM site. But that's, again, all preference, and you do have that option. So once you're done there, you can go ahead and click Exit. And now you've posted your events. Some tips that you might want to take down is that if you have these labeled in your other seasonal year, maybe as something else, maybe it's the 2011s, for example, or the 2010s, it will roll forward the age settings, but sometimes not the name. So you might just want to take a look and go through and make sure that the age settings match what the name would be. And if you need to make any changes, you would type the text into here, scroll down, and hit Update. The last step that you have to do is just set your program types. So the program type is the type of team that this is. A lot of people leave this to none or accidentally select the wrong one. I recommend just making the change right off the bat. So you would click on Coach Pool, go to Association Reporting, Program Type, Travel, and you want to apply it to everything beneath. And you can go ahead and hit Update and hit OK. Now everything beneath that, you'll notice, has a program type of travel. And that's how you open and post your registration events for 2019-2020.